Okay, we're going to play some youth matches. We've ended up doing it again. We've ended up in the last day and got a bunch of matches to play. We're just going to have to, hopefully, I think we'll be able to play them all in the background. Maybe we can't sit there and watch them all, but yeah. Alright, so we did play some friendlies with this setup. We can go to results, youth, friendly. 14. So I think we played, was it 4 with this tactic? I think it was all with this tactic, yeah. And it really just did well. So we haven't played the matches, but we've done the prep work for it, basically, like set the tactic up, tested it and everything. So I think we're just going to dive in. I think because we are about to play a bunch of matches, I think we'll just talk about the tactic a little bit conceptually before we just play them. So I have everything is set. So I've got it all set up. So, right, changing this to cover and stopper was something I think we changed throughout the testing. In particular, like the Octai guy he's faster. He's 79 speed. The other guy, Velai, not sure. He's much slower. So basically, we're just setting him to cover to drop back. Obviously, if you look at this tactic the other way around, like we got 2 wing backs there going forward, like we're really exposed defensively. So in particular, we just want this guy back more to, for the through balls, that he's got way more chance of beating their strikers to them. And then this guy moving in basically to move up to not be the furthest guy back, because he's much slower and definitely has much more scope to get beaten by their strikers. So it's basically just trying to set this up to prevent one-on-one chances in particular for them. And then that hopefully just hold them up long enough for the wing backs to recover, and then we're pretty defensively stable at that point once they're back. Going forwards, we got attacking midfielder in particular because this guy's got really good long shots, so we want him up a bit. This guy's striker in particular because we're happy for him to just drift more because he's much faster and got better crossing. And then this guy we just wanted to focus on finding a spot to score. So it is a bit, if you think about it, like we're looking to have a bit more forwards this side on the left, and this guy potentially drifting on the left, and then this guy. So it's a little bit like we want the attacks to go a little bit more down the left than the right. But the only thing we're really doing we're not doing a lot to. That's what we want, but we're not necessarily doing much to cause that to happen. I think the main thing is just this guy being faster makes it that our team are, more likely to, there is scope for him to run onto space to get the ball more because of his role and because of his abilities. So it means that our team is a little bit more likely to hit the ball into space down this side, but again, it's not much to push it that way. I think this guy being attacking midfielder moving up, this guy staying back, I think that, to be honest, is the main thing that's going to cause a little bit more, because when we lose possession, our tactic looks, the wing backs will be up, potentially, one or both. But, that aside, is just obviously a little bit more space on this side, on the left and the right, so it encourages a little bit. But again, it's not a huge thing here. It's like, it should just mean if we played many, 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 many matches, that when we reference the stats across all of them, our attacking play would be a little bit more balanced to the left and the right. And also we're giving up a little bit more on the left and the right, so we'd expect that that on the whole the matches just play a little bit more on the left side than the right side. But it's not a huge thing, not compared to some of the tactics we try to create to really specifically funnel play through certain areas where, it's not like that. It's just a minor thing. So, let's just let's get playing them, and honestly, it's not too often we could say something like this, but because the bar is set high here, like our starting squad, and we just set something up that made sense, and we had a lot of really bad players, really bad, in that team. We've bought some better players since, some properly good ones. And our starting team, and we just set the team up and we just clicked start. We didn't connect to the matches or play them or anything, and we got 7 wins in a draw. So literally, like, the expectation here is that we should be able to do better because we've made these improvements. And there's only one possible outcome that is better than 7 wins in a draw, which is 8 wins. So I suppose it is true. Anything less than 8 wins here is going to be a disappointment, which is an exceptionally high bar set here. We'll see what we can do. We will see what we can do. No, we didn't go through the team instructions, but it's basically just... we might be able to quickly do that now. So it's the fast tempo, direct passing. It's basically just counter-attacking. Just, we're just hitting the ball because we're just relying on the fact that we'll have enough players forwards, especially through the centre there. And that our players are just better... Our strikers are just going to be better than their defenders, basically. Better and faster, both. And that our centre-halves in particular, because we're just leaving them back and bombing everything else forwards, that our centre-halves are basically just going to be relatively good enough to be able to just deal with that effectively. But yeah, obviously only having 2 centre-halves back like this, obviously there's all, like, we're heavily reliant on them winning a lot of stuff, but it's still totally the case that it's a very attacking tactic in nature, so we can certainly concede a goal, and it's almost built into the plan, to be honest. This tactic is basically set up on the assumption that at this level, with how good our players are, we're definitely running on the assumption that we score multiple goals, pretty much. So I would even say that it's true that even if we... I mean, obviously sometimes, a match will just plan out and you wouldn't be disappointed with a 1-0 win, but if we do end up winning 1-0, it's certainly not the plan, so to speak. If we end up winning 4-2 or something, then that's more the plan. But some of these youth teams will just really struggle to deal with our attacking threat that we will have them under pressure a lot. So we will just be forwards a lot. So to some degree, the defensive tactic for this team is just to never be actually defending, just always be attacking. And we're kind of just relying on that situation happening a lot, where it just sort of comes through and our central defenders just win the ball. So we're heavily reliant on our central defenders just being really good here. Which kind of also means we're heavily reliant on their central attacking players being bad, basically. But, in the training league, youth training league, it's not an unreasonable... at the end of the day, the players just aren't that good, so... they're not that good, so if you do happen to have good players, you can expect to do pretty well. I think that's the reality of it. And if you don't have particularly good players, you can still expect to compete, basically. So. I mean, I didn't watch the matches before. I can't help but to think that with our original team, that got the 7 wins in the draw in those 8 youth matches, I can only assume that there was a couple of elements of fortune involved throughout those matches to end up with that set of results. But, still, obviously, it's... don't know, because I didn't watch them, so I'm not sure. It's very speculative, that statement. Could be wrong. Could be the opposite of wrong. Could be that loads of fortune or misfortune was involved, or misfortune for the opposition. I did notice quite a few minutes ago that their keeper was already on a 10, so We haven't scored, but we have put them under quite a bit of pressure. But not as much, maybe, as we hope to, maybe. Quite a bit, but ideally it would be more. Because there's not enough at the moment where you're sitting here watching this game thinking it's 100% certain we're going to score, and certainly not multiple goals. We've got a knock. Okay, so straight away, like, that just relieves huge amounts of pressure. Because whilst we weren't necessarily like creating as much as we wanted to, we were forwards a lot, we were attacking a lot, and they basically didn't create anything. So whilst we didn't have a really constant chance flow, it does fundamentally change the nature of the game state. Basically, us winning 1-0 now instead of it being 0-0, because we weren't creating loads that you could be sitting here thinking that we're definitely going to score a goal here. I mean, I just said that before, and we definitely weren't going to score more than one, and it's always a possibility they could hit one on the counter attack. And now this is different. We don't necessarily have to score to win because we've already got the goal. We only have to score, obviously, if they score, and they're really not looking like scoring. I'm going to do the sub here. Should have probably done it before. As soon as he got that knock, just because his condition was down. But yeah, I mean, at this point, we just have to be, I think, a little bit disciplined with our tactical changes. In that we very much have this game in control, so we shouldn't panic at any point here. And do some silly change, just for the sakes of doing a change. Oh, that's great. Okay.
For shame.
Great build-up play, though. Yeah, and as long as we're up 1-0, you know, we might not win. That's the reality here, no matter how much we're dominating. This guy's just electric pace for this level. And to some degree, like, really, I think it is... There are other players that we're trying to get their strengths out of, but for this tactic, but I think at its core, the whole reason why this tactic is being played is because of the striker that has the 2 goals in the 10. Like, if we didn't have that guy, we would be playing a different tactic. But yeah, I think the reason why we're playing this tactic is just because we know that this guy in particular, I mean, that, you know, he's a class above the opposition in the senior matches. So for the youth, you know, he's just going to run riot pretty much if we can just get him the ball, basically, in the right places. If we can get him the ball in the right places. So that's just another one. It's just those sort of interspace passes that are, and it's in particular, it's that setting, that interspace in the team instructions here. We've got interspace set, and that's just really important. Really important for this tactic in particular. It can be a bad thing in other tactics because you can be a lot of stray passes giving up possession, but for us, we're okay to give up, you know, have a few stray passes or whatever to have some of those really awesome through balls. So it's really a setting where you need to pay attention to exactly how much space your players typically have. So right now they're sort of back and set and whatever. So there's naturally going to be a bit less space, but once we, you know, so we just got to pay attention to the situations. how often are we letting them get back and set? I think not that often, because we have the faster tempo, the direct passing. So we are generally transitioning fast, generally not giving them time. So it's generally just the back four, basically. The central midfielders don't have the time. So that was nearly an awesome chance. Exactly. That could have just been a goal, and that's why we need the 2 goals. This could just be a goal as well. And it is. And that's why we need the 2 goals. And why we probably should have been potentially making a sub before. Maybe not, though. I think that guy's out there regardless. Good chance. Alright, so I think we're not probably looking to sub any of the tied guys. Which has been interesting. Yeah. Don't like this sub, but for the sakes of a sub, but I'm just trying to think of, I'm not trying to do it through that lens. I'm trying to do it through the lens of, right, let's just undo this. Alright, so I think now we just care about not conceding, so let's just try and set with that in mind. So we'll just change them to fullback, and that'll just make us way more defensively solid. We just really need to get through a few minutes here and not concede. So very close. One possession away. Okay. Just need to, yeah. Okay, so we got there. So the scoreline made it look close. I mean, in reality, we kind of dominated it. Obviously, we knew full well they could get lucky and score. We were kind of unlucky to not score more. But, yeah. So that's the thing. I think that, in a way, illustrates the strength of how strong our team really is, because we were pretty unlucky. We should have, in both in terms of conceding that goal and in terms of not having scored more. So we were quite unlucky, and yet really it always kind of felt like we were going to win that game pretty much. So I'm just checking this here in particular, the plan of unlocking this guy a bit and running into space was a lot. 58 dribble touches, 3 run past opponents, 6 shots. So he's unlocked, basically. Like we're definitely getting a lot out of him, which is what we wanted. And then at the back, we're putting them under a lot of pressure. Effectively, you can look here. Look at all these interceptions across the back line. That's 21 interceptions. That is a ridiculous amount of interceptions. And part of the reason why we're getting so many is because they're set to the wingback role, so they're much more covering loads more space, basically. And we're reliant on getting to the ball, just putting them under enough pressure and getting to the ball first, but covering a lot of space so that wherever they go, we can intercept it. We just have to get there first, obviously. Quite a lot of tackle attempts needed as well. So this tactic did place a huge load on our defensive unit, basically. But that's okay. It's quite interesting in regards to the DMC, however. Like, no tackle attempts. They did get a couple of interceptions. So, not a lot for the DMC, but I think it's more about protecting the space. And they're also really slow, so this is a problem. for them in regards to the like that area is naturally covered already by like the 2DCs and the DMC, so they're like typically the ball's not going to be going straight there to get an interception. They're going to have to run to get it. So the speed, in particular, when you're in a cluttered area, means that you're not going to be able to run to beyond that cluttered area to get the interception. And also, they're generally avoiding that one specific area because we have 3 players there, so there's just generally not a lot of tackling attempts on offer unless they get him sort of behind the defenders where the centre halves are getting them. But yeah, I think it's fine. We'll just keep going. I think this to change that just because he didn't happen to get a lot of interceptions or tackles or whatever in one match, it's like it provides a lot of balance to the tactic. I think the main thing to learn from that is probably that what attribute, like, you know, if we were recruiting another player, like that, we want a faster one. I think not necessarily lightning fast, just faster than 16. I think we could say. Yeah, it's really not much, and the dribbling doesn't really matter. Yeah, of all the positions in the tactic, that was the one that was really like not involved in the play much at all. I mean, the MRC, not a lot, but still more. But it's not surprising because we are doing counter-attacking, so we are going straight from defense to attack. So basically, like, all 3 of these midfielders are a little bit lacking, I think, in regards to their involvement. But not the AMC. Like, the AMC was this guy here and this guy. So if you aggregate all of that up, he is actually involved a lot. But I think that's just because he's further forward, so he's sort of involved in the attacks, the counter attacks, whereas the other guys just aren't because it's, you know, they're behind the play basically. They're not up. We'll see if that trend continues. So that's just one of those balls that, like, if that happened to spill over, knocked on, headed on, or whatever, like, there's a good chance we end up scoring. We do need to pay attention in particular every single one of these matches because it is possible they'll have a fast defender. Cool. Right, so goal poacher, poaching away. Because it might, you know, we probably want to change things up a bit tactically if that's the case. Because we kind of are set up just, you know, to leverage / I don't know, exploit, whatever word you want to use, to get the most out of our superstar striker. And if they naturally counter him a bit, then we might look to change things up. Because we do have options with this tactic. We could build up the play a bit more through the middle. If we wanted, it would involve all the central midfield way more. Goal poacher, that was great. Great little cut back there. So a pretty similar story to the last match, really. Just we're kind of firmly in control. They're not really creating anything. I think the big difference is we've scored 2 already. And probably created a similar amount of chances, or maybe more, a little bit more than last game, but yeah, I mean, this game is just effectively over already. It's different if it's senior, because we'd be looking to make subs just so that players won't get injured and stuff, but for youth they don't get injured. So now, there isn't really like much point to change anything. Just see what the score ends up being. We probably will look to make some changes in the second half. We should have probably had a firmer idea about which youth players might still be a part of the team going forwards, because we should be getting them training points so they get better training options going forwards. I don't think it's... so it is this Maclas, but we bought him on last match. I think that's the only one, to be honest. Maybe Soric. Yeah, he'll never be anything. I think the only one that is that Maclas. So we just want to bring him on every game. Toscadal would be the next closest, and maybe Soric. But yeah, I don't think either of those are kind of good enough to ever be anything. Maclas probably isn't either, but he's the closest one where we might need him to some capacity. He may not end up being a first team player or whatever in the future, but longer term, but shorter term, he could end up playing a lot in the youth. He could end up playing some matches for the senior team as a cover, cover for injuries and stuff. So he's the main one. Basically, all these other guys I just cannot see playing for the senior team, even in an injury crisis. Pretty much going forwards, in the immediate term, the ones that happen to play on the left or the right can, because we don't have enough left or right sided players, and we have to play them in the tactics, so it could force our hand. But I think it's already the case that they were playing a bit at the start, but even now I don't even think they'll play unless it was a proper injury crisis. So. Look at that. 70% territory. I haven't had a shot. Yeah. So this is a point that I was trying to make before about, like, to some degree, the defense for this tactic is the primary plan or primary concept of the defense is to effectively to just never defend, just to constantly have the other pin the other team back into their half and have them under pressure. So that's plan A, and then plan B is basically just we've got two great centre halves, so just lean heavily on them and hope that as and when they need to do stuff, they do it basically. It's pretty interesting because that keeper is pretty bad as well. So I mean, that's another reason to sort of this philosophy kind of makes sense, because to some degree, like the best plan if you've got a bad keeper is to have a tactic where the opposition doesn't have any shots. I feel like they might have a shot here. They did. Unfortunately, our perfect record of them having 0 shot attempts is ruined by that very speculative and very wide long-range bomb. Alright, this guy's run onto it. He's put a bit wide. He's cut in, but yeah, he's missed it, unfortunately. Might have been because his condition was below 80 as well. Maybe, maybe not. Oh, he gets a chance to immediately redeem himself. And misses again. Was it because of the 78? Maybe he scores that without it. So, yeah. Not too bothered at this point. Like, I really feel like just there's kind of like no chance, really, that they're going to score 2 goals. Pretty much. We're just firmly in control of this match. And I do feel like we could easily end up scoring another goal here as well. So I think that's part of it. Is like, yeah, we're firmly in control and they probably won't score, but you know, if we're the most unlucky team ever at this point, we might end up conceding 2 goals. And then if that is to be the case, let's just say it's a given that we are going to be that unlucky and we will concede 2. You know, we still win anyway if we score 1 more. So having, you know, when we've got this many chances flowing through and there's a pretty decent chance we will score again, it can, you know, make sense. The biggest way to de-risk being extremely unlucky is to just sort of like keep it as it is. Because the alternative is obviously is that we change something like change our wing backs to fullbacks or something and reduce the chances in theory that we would concede 2. But I don't know what we're reducing, so to speak, because it's already the case that there's almost no chance, based on what we're seeing at least, that they're going to score the 2 goals anyway, right? So by changing it, maybe we end up not pinning them in their half as much, and basically by changing it to go more defensive could be the catalyst of what creates the very unlucky scenario where we can see 2 goals, and also reduces our chances of getting a third goal, which is another way for us to de-risk being extremely unlucky. So in games like this, it's really just about trying to weigh up exactly what needs to happen here in order to not win, basically. Alright. And at this juncture, alright, I said about this guy, let's just bring him on. Attacking winger. At this point, I think it is close enough to over that we can just get our development points for our guys. We might even just make another sub. I will have a proper check of these players after, like not on the before we play the next matches, just to make sure I am giving the right guys the time off the bench. So there you go. I was right. We do get the 3rd goal, and even if we were very unlucky and conceded 2, we would win anyway. Right, we get to make 1 more sub. Am I right about this guy? Yeah. Okay, maybe. Maybe he has some kind of future, so we want him to get the points. So I think here's the other one. Unfortunately, I think the 2 players that really allow us to play this tactic are this striker who got the 10 and the 2 goals, and this Oktay. Right, it's those 2 players, and they're both 21. So yeah, we won't be able to play this tactic next season. But for now, very comfortable wins. We'll just quickly check those match stats. Right, so they only had that one shot, that one super speculative long-range shot that went like way wide, and that was it. 65% territory in the end. Like really, we just completely dominated that match from start to finish. 55 dribble 8. We really did unlock this guy again. Our poacher even had 5 shots. DMC, no tackle attempts again. The back line, a whole bunch of interceptions and tackle attempts again. Just huge amounts of stuff for them to do. The MLC in particular, yeah, it's quite interesting because last game he had quite a bit more, but this time the MRC had more. They do have stuff to do collectively though. If we look at the central midfield, I guess now as a pairing, have quite a bit to do. I think it's more the DMC and the AMC that are a little bit more like they don't have that much. But yeah, cool. All right. But yeah, again, the whole point of the tactic is just to lean heavily into 2 specific players, pretty much. and they're not those players are not part of the midfield. So, all right, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you for the next matches. Cheers.